All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden financial network that basically links the entire globe. I mean, the system is so huge, it touches pretty much everything you do, from the coffee you drink in the morning to the phone you're probably watching this on. So let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start with a kind of wild question. Just take a look in your pocket or on your desk right now. How many different countries do you think are represented in the stuff you own? The answer is probably way more than you think, and it's all thanks to this invisible force we call international finance.
Yeah, just take your smartphone, for example. It's basically a tiny United Nations, right? The design, that's probably from the USA. But that amazing screen you're looking at, South Korea. The battery keeping it alive, China. The processor, the brains of the operation, Taiwan. And that camera you love, Japan. It's incredible. We just see a phone, but underneath it all is this unbelievably complex financial web that makes the whole thing possible.
So, yeah, we're living in this truly global marketplace. But it didn't just poof appear out of nowhere. It was built piece by piece on the ideas of international finance. So, how does it work? How does a company in one country pay a factory halfway across the world for millions of parts? That's the big puzzle we're going to unpack today.
All right, first up, the rise of global business. We've got to meet the main actors on this world stage. So let's talk about the multinational corporation, or MNC. You've heard the term for sure. But don't just think of them as companies that sell stuff everywhere. No. Think of them more like global empires with production facilities and marketing teams spread all over the world. These guys are the real engines of the global economy.
But why would a company even bother going global? I mean, it sounds like a huge headache, right? Well, there are some really powerful reasons. First, they might need to access raw materials that they just can't get at home. Or they're looking for efficiency, trying to lower costs by integrating their operations across borders. Sometimes it's about avoiding tariffs. If you produce locally, you can skip those trade barriers. And of course, a huge one is just expanding their market. When you've sold to everyone you can at home, you got to find new customers. Okay, so we get why they do it. But that leads to a really simple but really important question. A company in, say, the US decides to buy parts from a supplier in Japan. How do they actually pay them? The US company has dollars, but the Japanese company needs yen. How do you make that happen? This one problem is basically the whole reason international finance exists.
Next section, following the money flows. Let's look at the financial plumbing of the global economy. And this really gets to the heart of the challenge. When you're doing business domestically, it's pretty straightforward, right? One country, one currency, simple transactions. But the moment you go international, well, everything changes. Suddenly, you're dealing with multiple countries, multiple currencies, and that means way more complex transactions and a whole lot more risk.
So what's the solution to this currency problem? It's the foreign exchange market, better known as Forex. And this isn't some building you can go visit. It's a gigantic, global, 24/7 digital market where currencies are traded. It's where businesses can swap one currency for another, and it's what makes all of this international trade and investment possible. It is the engine of the global economy. Now, take a look at this chart. I know, it looks like a crazy spider web, and honestly, that's kind of the point. This shows the cash flow for just one of those big MNCs. You can see how money is constantly moving for exporting, importing, financing. It's flowing between the main parent company, all its foreign subsidiaries, and all these different international markets. It's a really complex web. But operating in this global system isn't all upside. It comes with some really unique risks. For one, there's exchange rate risk. The value of a currency can just change, and suddenly your profits or costs are totally different. Then there's country risk. Imagine political trouble or economic instability in a country where you have a big factory. That could be a disaster. And maybe the biggest one is interdependence. Because we're all so connected now, a financial crisis in one part of the world can spread like wildfire to everywhere else. Okay, part 3, the rules of the game. We need to talk about the system behind the system. Right, so this whole system didn't just appear, it evolved over time. Way back, we had the classical gold standard, where currencies were actually pegged to the value of gold. Then, after World War II, the world came together and created the Bretton Woods system. That's when the US dollar became the world's reserve currency, and it was still pegged to gold. But that changed too. And since about 1973, we've been in this era of flexible exchange rates, where the value of a currency is basically determined by supply and demand on that Forex market we talked about.
And that Bretton Woods conference, it was a really big deal. It did more than just create a new currency system. It also created what you could call a crucial financial firefighter.
And here it is, the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF. It was formed way back in July 1944 with one main goal: to help stabilize the global economy. It's like the world's emergency service for finance, designed to keep the whole system from collapsing. So what does the IMF actually do? Well, its job is to promote international monetary cooperation, basically get everyone to work together. It also tries to stabilize exchange rates to avoid chaos. A huge part of its job is providing temporary funds to countries that are having trouble with their payments. And ultimately, it's all about promoting free trade among all the member countries. All right, our final section, why this all matters. Let's connect this global picture back to your daily life.
I mean, just look at this number. The growth has been absolutely insane. Right after World War II, the total volume of international trade was about $60 billion. By 1998, it had ballooned to over $5 trillion. That explosive growth is the reason we have the lives we do today. It's why that global smartphone we talked about even exists. And this quote really nails it. P.G. Apte wrote, "In today's world, finance cannot be anything but international." It's so true. The line between a domestic economy and the global economy, it's basically gone. They're all part of the same thing now.
So let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways here? First, your daily life is absolutely connected to the global economy. Second, it's the MNCs and these huge global financial markets that make it all happen. Third, there's a whole system of rules and institutions, like the IMF, that governs all these money flows. And finally, and this is a big one, this whole setup creates both massive opportunities and some really significant risks. Which brings us to one last question for you to think about. Our world is more connected than it has ever been. So with all our economic fates tied so tightly together, what do you think is the biggest risk we now face as one global community?